2020 presidential candidate, former member of Congress from Hawaii, Tulsi Gabbard joins me. She is currently an officer in the U.S. Army Reserve and has served 3 deployments to the Middle East and Africa. She has a new book out, For Love of Country, Leave the Democrat Party Behind. Nice to see you, Congressman.
Nice to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
Let me just turn first to your experience in the military.
Yes.
What would you do about Israel if you were president?
What they are doing is waging a war against a radical Islamist terrorist group, not very different from Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, ISIS, Al-Shabaab. My most recent deployment to East Africa was directly centered around Somalia's fight against Al-Shabaab. These wars have to be waged not only in a military sense, but you have to wage ideological warfare. They've been doing it for hundreds of years. We're seeing the fruits of that on some of our campuses here across the country as we have people, students and people from all over the country parroting Hamas demands, calling for October 7th to happen 10,000 times over.
Where did that come from, do you think? I mean, to say, all of a sudden after October 7th, and I've noted, reported what John has, is that, all of a sudden, all over these campuses, now we just showed the video off the top in Amsterdam, all over the world. Where did this come from?
This has been a steady drumbeat from these Islamist terrorist groups like Hamas. We saw throughout some of my deployments, Al-Qaeda and ISIS doing the same. ISIS probably using the most sophisticated measures through social media, magazines, media output. This has been going on for quite some time. It has just been brought to the forefront in the wake of the October 7th attack. And this is why we are seeing it happening all over the world. And the reason why it has grown and it's been bubbling below the surface, not obviously catching headlines, is because of the failure of the Biden administration and previous administrations to wage that ideological war, counter warfare, to defeat their ideology, which essentially Islamism is about political Islam ruling over the world, all over the world, and making all of us live under Islamic rule. That is their goal. That is their objective. We have the superior ideology of freedom in this country, what our country was founded upon. Neither President Biden nor previous presidents have recognized that threat of ideological warfare, which is why we're seeing it continue to spread here in America and around the world in the West, and fail still to this day to call it out for what it is, because they're afraid of being labeled Islamophobes by their pro-Hamas or Hamas apologists voting base.
You talk about freedom. I've listened to your book. You left the Democratic Party. One of the core things you talk about is that your former party, the Democratic Party, you say is authoritarian.
Yes.
And it's eroding rights.
And it's sad. It's sad, Greta. And you have lived in and around politics for such a long time. I know you have witnessed, as I have, how much the Democratic Party has changed. When I first joined the party, I was 21 years old, and I saw a party that celebrated free speech, a party that represented the values of President John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King. You fast forward to where we are today. They are weaponizing the Department of Justice, undermining the rule of law, throwing everything they possibly can at President Trump, trying to keep us as voters from even having the choice of who to vote for in this election, and targeting political opponents.
You were a kid politician. You were a politician. When did you first run for office?
I was 21 in 2002.
Okay, you were a kid politician. Have you changed?
In some ways, as the world has changed, I have re-looked at my views and my positions on things, but fundamentally from a principles standpoint, from a values standpoint, I've always been an independent-minded person. I've always done my best to put our country first before any partisan interests, and made sure that I was rooted in those fundamentals of freedom.
Well, you talk about putting your country first. You served in uniform, still in uniform, yes. Right? Still in uniform. And you got pretty much beat up in the election about I think it's called maybe unpatriotic, or even a Russian asset.
Putting it nicely, yes.
What? I mean, to put it nicely.
Yes. It is a signal to anyone who dares to challenge the Washington elite, the likes of Hillary Clinton and Mitt Romney, people from both political parties who have called me these types of names, accusing me of being a traitor to the country that I love and I'm willing to lay my life down for, all because they refuse to be challenged with their warmongering neocon narrative and refuse to be confronted with the truth of the harsh and costly consequences of their decisions and the policies they've been pushing for decades.
Okay, the question everybody wonders is whether or not you would consider being vice president if Trump selects you. What would be the attraction to that job? If the answer is yes, and what's he like when one-on-one?
If he asked, I would be honored to serve. I'd be honored to serve my country and be in a position where I can actually begin to start tackling many of these challenges we face, whether it's border security or other domestic issues, as well as to get our foreign policy back on track. We're on the brink of multiple wars.
All right, we see him on TV. I've interviewed him a million times, but what's he like when you talk to him?
I've had great conversations with him, engaging many different topics. We have had great conversations.
Tulsi Gabbard, former congresswoman from the state of Hawaii.
Thank
Aloha.
You. Aloha. Great seeing you.
Nice seeing you, and thank you for serving.